Hello there, I'm Nemo.
Hello.
Evolution has always been ahead of us. Evolution figured out data storage before we did. DNA packs more information per cubic nanometer than any hard drive we have ever built. It figured out the lens independently, at least 40 times across different animal lineages.
It also figured out flight, sonar, noise cancellation, jet propulsion, magnetic compasses, photovoltaics, Velcro, and even deliberate fire manipulation.
And yet, there is one invention that changed human civilization forever, and it has never once emerged in any living organism over 4 billion years.
The wheel.
Yeah. But why? Why animals never evolve wheels? And if they did, what would they look like?
Probably ugly. Well, I guess I deserve it. I bet I look good though. Really good.
Before we go further, we need to be precise about what a wheel actually is.
A wheel, in the engineering sense, is a rigid disc or ring that rotates freely around the central axis, decoupled from the structure that supports it. That decoupling, usually happening through a bearing, is what gives you infinite rotational freedom.
And this might be one of the most consequential mechanical insights in human history. The wheel appears everywhere we have ever built anything that moves. Carts, chariots, millstones, spinning wheels, gears, pulleys, water wheels, steam engines, locomotives, cars, turbines, gyroscopes. Even when a machine looks nothing like a wheel, like a clock, a generator, a hard drive, or a jet engine, if you look closer, you will find one inside somewhere. We invented it in 3500 BCE in Mesopotamia. First as a potter's wheel, before anyone thought of putting it on a vehicle. Weird. And in the roughly 5,500 years since its invention, we have not found anything better for the specific problem it solves.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Which makes it all the stranger that nothing alive ever got there first. So let's make sure we're not missing anything obvious. Is it correct to say that there are no wheels in nature?
The pill bug or the armadillo, they can curl into a ball and they can roll, but they are not wheels. There is no axle. There is no rotation around a fixed point, which makes it omnidirectional, inefficient for directed movement.
The dung beetle rolls a ball of, dung. But that is again a sphere being pushed, not a wheel.
The wheel spider of the Namib Desert is quite fascinating. It tips onto its side and cartwheels down sand dunes at remarkable speed, using its own legs as spokes. Now, it's not a ball anymore, but it is still not a wheel. The entire body is rotating with no axle.
The only free rotary system in animals is the crystalline style of bivalves. It's essentially a long cylindrical rod that rotates in the stomach of clams to crush food. Quite unique, but debatably not a wheel. There's nothing else in the entire animal kingdom that could be considered a wheel.
Well, at least at the macroscopic level. If we zoom in a little, bacterial flagella rotate. They work as rotary propellers. This is true infinite rotational freedom, driven by a molecular motor. That's definitely a wheel.
Zoom in closer and closer, and the ATP synthase is a nanoscale rotary motor embedded in cell membrane that produces energy in the form of ATP. It's often compared to a water wheel or a turbine, so also a wheel. So nature has evolved wheels, just not at the scale we are looking at. Special mention to the Navicula, an algae that secretes mucus that it uses like tank trucks. Still not a whale though. But you know what I mean, right? Why has no animal ever evolved big or small wheels or any form of propeller for locomotion? Every part of your body is connected to every other part. Your body is an overlap of continuous networks. If you wanted a limb that rotated continuously, you would need it to be detached from the rest of your body. Which is problematic because for growth, maintenance, control, and sensing, you need to route blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatic ducts through a joint that can spin forever. The moment you try to do that, you get what engineers would call a rotary union problem. Your blood vessels, for example, they would wind up like a garden hose someone keeps spinning. And this is definitely a tough problem to solve that has been brought up a few times in essays and videos on the topic. However, I'm here to convince you that, of course, it is an issue, but it is not the most unsolvable one. In fact, there are engineering solutions to this problem.
The rotary union, a seal joint that lets fluid flow from a stationary pipe into a spinning one without leaking, often associated with the slip ring, a conductive ring that lets electricity flow from a stationary contact into a spinning one without winding up.
Evolution has never built biological versions of them, but the fact that we engineered them and that they work tells us that it is theoretically possible to design biological counterparts. We have a huge selection of tissues and materials to choose from, such as bone, cartilage, keratin, synovial fluid, etc. So we could definitely think of a way to build working biological vascular rotary joints or neural slip rings. Neurotransmitters are already chemicals crossing a gap, not wires. So a rotating neural joint could theoretically work if the receiving neurons were arranged in a full circle around the joint. What I'm saying is, while it is true that the rotary union is a challenge, I don't believe it is a reason why it has never evolved in animals. A biological wheel is mechanistically, and I would dare say developmentally, possible. The real problems are of functional and evolutionary origin.
Wheels are extraordinary, but wheels are only efficient because we build roads. Of course, on a smooth, flat, hard surface, a wheel is dramatically more efficient than legs, but natural terrain is almost never smooth, flat, and hard. It is uneven, soft, sloped, vegetated, wet. Legs are vastly better than wheels at navigating all of that. They can step over obstacles, they can adjust force distribution on the fly, and they can operate on a 1 centimeter ledge or a 40-degree slope. The wheel is not a general purpose locomotion system. It is a locomotion system that is optimized for a very specific artificial environment that, until very recently, did not exist on planet Earth.
Also, evolution is not goal-oriented. It does not plan, it does not have a destination. There is no such thing as intelligent design. It only keeps new traits when they offer an advantage, when they increase the fitness of an organism, its chances to survive and reproduce. If we could portray advantageous adaptation as peaks and disadvantageous ones as valleys, evolution doesn't see a peak that it likes and decides to go down a valley and then go up to reach its destination. Instead, it follows a gradient ascent, one step at a time.
Evolution got us wings because a half-formed wing is still useful. It helps you glide or thermoregulate or signal to mates. We got eyes because a half-formed eye is still useful. Even a simple photoreceptor tells you the difference between light and dark.
A half-formed wheel is useful for nothing. There is no intermediate structure between a leg and a wheel that confers a meaningful locomotion advantage. There is no incremental path through the fitness landscape that leads to a functional wheel. I believe that this is the true problem behind the absence of wheels in nature. Even if wheels were truly useful and efficient, that peak is surrounded by a huge evolutionary fitness valley.
Do you know why the bicycle fell?
No, you cannot make jokes in every video that I make.
Because it was too tired.
Stop the puns and the jokes, please.
I see my joke fell flat.
Oh my god, this is not good for the video.
If I stop, do you think the video will gain more traction?
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna turn you off.
No! You gotta roll with it, Nemo.
Now let's have some fun and let's try to imagine what the most plausible version of a biological wheel could look like. Philip Pullman, in his novel The Amber Spyglass, invented a species called the Mulefa. Mulefa. They have a diamond-shaped body plan and they use naturally circular seed pods as wheels by making them spin freely around a bony spur. This is definitely a wheel.
It is a symbiotic relationship. The wheel is external, borrowed from another organism. The Mulefa needs the tree to produce the pods. The tree needs the Mulefa to use and crack the pods open so the seeds can germinate.
Could this happen in nature? We have symbiosis of extraordinary beauty and complexity. A locomotion symbiosis is definitely strange, but not obviously impossible. You will need a plant that produces nearly perfect discs, which some seed pods already approximate, and an animal whose anatomy happens to create a compatible hub geometry. You could also imagine an animal using its own shed structures for the same purpose. Some antlers or horns could be nearly circular in cross-section. They would fall off seasonally. A species that evolved to pick them up and use them would be producing its own wheels. No symbiosis required. And instead of borrowing from a plant, we could imagine a collaboration between two animals. We have already seen that some animals roll into balls and others push balls around. So what about a more efficient version of that? Imagine a pill bug with two hard protruding axle-like appendages, and a second animal, something with long grasping arms like a praying mantis, that locks onto those appendages and rides. The pill bug becomes a wheel in the strict sense because it rotates around a fixed axle held by the second animal.
Unidirectional? An axle? Sounds like a wheel to me.
So why would either animal do this? I don't know. The weight of the rolling animal could anchor the rider in a high wind environment. Maybe the rider provides guidance and protection in return. Maybe they share access to a resource at the bottom of a windy slope neither could safely descend alone. A few years ago I made a video about the Portuguese man-o'-war, a creature that looks like a single animal but is actually a colony of tiny specialized organisms called zooids. Some of them digest food, some produce venom, some form the gas-filled float that catches the wind for locomotion. Now imagine some of those zooids specializing not as a float but as a rotating structure, a biological propeller of sort.
The idea of a colonial organism assembling something that functions like a wheel might sound strange, but ants already build bridges and rafts with their bodies. I don't think it would be too far-fetched to imagine them recreating a variant of the wheel.
Another idea. A mollusc that builds a wheel-shaped shell which is not fully fused to its body. Through lubrication and displacement of its center of mass, the animal could drive the shell from the inside, rotating around itself like a ball in a bearing. I think that would satisfy the definition of a wheel and axle almost perfectly, with the animal's body as the axle and the shell as the wheel. And a similar idea could work with arthropods. Imagine a creature that periodically sheds a hard transparent outer ring and uses it briefly as a wheel. My last idea is probably the most fun but the least accurate in terms of what a wheel should be. Imagine a leg that is half a disc, like a D shape. When it contacts the ground, it rocks forward on its curved edge, propelling the animal forward, then lifts off and resets. Now imagine several of these, offset in phase like the legs of a centipede. One is done rocking, while the next is just starting. The motion would be smooth and continuous.
It would not be a true wheel since there is no full rotation and we're missing the axle. But we don't have to deal with rotary union or plumbing problems.
The half wheel is just a leg with a curved bottom. And a leg with a slightly curved bottom is not very different from a normal leg. That intermediate step could be useful. I can see evolution get there, and it might be the only path to a wheel-like locomotion that does not require crossing an evolutionary fitness valley. So, what do you think? What do you think animals with wheels would look like? Which animal would gain more aura by having wheels, and which animal would look the most cringe by having wheels? Let me know in the comments. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video and consider becoming a patron on Patreon and joining the Discord server if you want. We can hang out over there. See you very soon.